This is Bible News Network. And tonight, we take you back to a moment in human history that changed everything. A time when the world had no borders, no language barriers, no misunderstanding. Just one voice, one people, one mission. But what started as unity quickly turned into something far more dangerous. Because this wasn't just a construction project. It was a statement, a rebellion, a warning shot, fired from earth toward heaven. And by the time it was over, humanity would never speak the same way again. In the early days after the flood, after the waters had receded and life began again, humanity stood at a crossroads. The descendants of Noah had spread across the earth, carrying with them the memory of survival and the promise of a new beginning. But something was different this time. The world was united in a way we've never seen since. Scripture tells us, now the whole world had one language and a common speech. Genesis 11. Imagine that. No translation needed, no confusion, no division. Every word understood perfectly, every idea shared instantly. A single, global conversation. As people migrated eastward, they discovered a vast fertile plain, a place that seemed perfect for settlement, a place called Shinar. A land that would soon become the center of human ambition, and possibly human pride. Families stopped wandering, communities formed, and soon a decision was made. At first it sounded like progress, innovation, growth. People began speaking to one another, not just about survival, but about legacy. Come, let us make bricks and bake them thoroughly. This wasn't primitive construction anymore. They weren't using stone. They were creating something new, engineered, controlled, built by human hands, refined through human intelligence. Brick by brick, idea by idea, this was civilization evolving. But then, the plan grew bigger, bolder, more dangerous. Come, let us build ourselves a city with a tower that reaches to the heavens. Not just a home, not just a city, a tower, a structure so tall, so monumental, that it would pierce the sky itself. Let's pause here, because this is where everything changes. This isn't just architecture, this is intention. The people weren't just building upward, they were reaching for something more, something deeper, so that we may make a name for ourselves, otherwise we will be scattered over the face of the whole earth. There it is, the real reason, not survival, not unity, not even progress. Fame, control, defiance. Let's break it down. God had already given humanity a command after the flood. Be fruitful, multiply, and fill the earth. Spread out, grow, expand. But instead, they chose concentration, centralization, power in one place, one city, one tower, one identity. They weren't just building a tower, they were building a system, a world where humanity would define itself without God. The project began, and it grew, fast. Workers labored day and night. Kilns burned constantly, bricks stacked higher and higher. From a distance, the city looked unstoppable, a monument to human capability, a symbol of unity. But beneath the surface, something was shifting. When everyone speaks the same language, agreement is easy. Ideas spread quickly, plans multiply, momentum builds, and without opposition, ambition can spiral, unchecked, unquestioned, unstoppable. And that's exactly what was happening. This tower wasn't hidden, it wasn't subtle, it was designed to be seen, to be admired, to be feared, a message to the world. We are in control now. As the tower stretched higher, something profound happened. The gap between heaven and earth began to feel smaller, at least in their minds. But here's the truth they didn't understand. You can build as high as you want, but heaven is not something you reach by effort. While humanity was busy building upward, something else was happening. Something unseen. Something far more powerful. Because the story doesn't end with construction. It doesn't end with unity. It doesn't end with success. It ends with interruption. The same God who had once flooded the earth was now watching again. Not with water this time, but with something else, something that would strike at the very core of human connection. And when he acts, everything changes. The tower is rising, the people are united, the mission is clear. But heaven has taken notice. Subsequently, we witness the moment God steps in, and the project that seemed unstoppable comes to a sudden, shocking halt. Stay with us. This is Bible News Network. Welcome back to Bible News Network. The tower is rising, the people are united, the world is speaking one language and moving with one purpose. But what looks like progress on earth is raising concern in heaven, because unity without direction can become dangerous. And now the moment of divine intervention has arrived. As the city expands and the tower stretches higher into the sky, Scripture tells us something remarkable. But the Lord came down to see the city and the tower the people were building. Genesis 11. The people believed they were reaching heaven, but God came down. No matter how high humanity builds, it never reaches God. God chooses when to come near. God observes the city, the movement, the coordination, the unity. He sees more than bricks and mortar. He sees intention. He sees the direction of the human heart. And then he speaks. If, as one people speaking the same language, they have begun to do this, then nothing they plan to do will be impossible for them. This isn't admiration, it's a warning. Unity is powerful. Language is powerful, but when both are used without reverence for God, they become tools for rebellion. Let's be clear. God was not threatened by the tower. This wasn't about height. This wasn't about engineering. This was about trajectory. Humanity was moving in a direction where God would be ignored. Pride would replace purpose, and self-glorification would take center stage. They said, "Let us make a name for ourselves." But they were created to reflect God's name, not replace it. And so, a decision is made, not out of panic, not out of fear, but out of divine wisdom. Come, let us go down and confuse their language so they will not understand each other. This is the turning point. Not fire, not flood, not destruction, but confusion. God doesn't destroy the tower, he disrupts communication. Because communication is the foundation of everything they were building. Take away understanding, and everything stops. Workers are moving, instructions are being shouted, plans are being executed, and then something changes. A man gives an order, but the worker next to him doesn't understand. He repeats it. Louder, slower, still nothing. Confusion spreads. Words begin to shift. Sounds change. Sentences lose meaning. What was once clear becomes noise. One group speaks, another group stares back in confusion. Arguments break out. Frustration rises. Coordination fails. People begin to panic. What are you saying? Why are you talking like that? Something's wrong. But no one can fix it, because no one understands each other anymore. Without communication, there is no cooperation. Bricks stop moving. Tools are dropped. Work comes to a halt. The tower, once unstoppable, is now frozen in silence. Something unexpected happens next. People start gathering, not by plan, but by understanding. Those who can still understand each other stick together. Small groups form, clusters, communities, each speaking a different language. What was once one people is now many. Different languages, different cultures, different directions. The unity that once defined humanity is gone. Remember their fear? Otherwise, we will be scattered over the face of the whole earth. The very thing they tried to avoid is now happening. People begin to move, away from the city, away from the tower, into different regions, different lands. The earth begins to fill, just as God originally commanded. The tower remains, unfinished, silent, a monument, not of success, but of interruption. A reminder of what happens when humanity builds without God. Let's process this. No natural disaster, no visible force, Just a shift in language, and everything changed. Because language is more than words, it's connection, it's unity, it's power, and in a single moment, that power was divided. God didn't end humanity, He redirected it. He didn't destroy progress, He limited its direction. Because unchecked unity in the wrong direction can lead to total corruption. The tower has stopped, the people are divided, the world is changing. But one question remains: what happens next? Moving forward, we explore the aftermath, the scattering of nations, the birth of languages, and the name that would forever define this moment. Stay with us. This is Bible News Network. Welcome back to Bible News Network. Moments ago, a united world lost its voice. A single language shattered. A global project abandoned. And now humanity faces something it has never experienced before: division. The shouting has faded. The confusion has settled. But what remains is something deeper than noise. Silence. Not the silence of peace, but the silence of separation. People stand in small groups, speaking words only they understand. The city that once echoed with unity now echoes with distance. Something begins to take shape. Groups start to recognize their differences, not just in language, but in thought, in expression, in identity. Where there was once one culture, now many begin to emerge. Each group carries its own way of speaking, its own way of understanding the world. This is the birth of nations, not by borders, but by language. So the Lord scattered them from there over all the earth, and they stopped building the city. Genesis 11. They begin to leave, not together, but in directions shaped by understanding. One group moves east, another moves west, some head north, others go south. No central plan, no global agreement, just movement. The world begins to fill. What humanity resisted is now fulfilled. God had said, "Fill the earth." They refused, so God intervened, and now the earth is being filled anyway. They encounter new environments. Mountains, rivers, deserts, forests. Each group adapts, learns, builds again, but this time, not as one. Back in Shinar, the city remains, half built, half used. The tower, once the center of human ambition, now stands abandoned. A silent structure under an open sky. That tower becomes something more than a building. It becomes a symbol of pride, of ambition, of human effort without divine alignment. A reminder that unity alone is not enough. Let's be honest, the people weren't trying to survive. They were trying to elevate themselves, to make a name for ourselves. But in doing so, they lost something far greater: their unity. Before this, humanity moved as one. After this, history becomes a story of many people, many cultures, many languages. Civilizations begin to rise independently, no longer connected by one voice, but separated by many. Language now defines everything. Communication becomes limited. Misunderstanding becomes possible. Collaboration becomes harder, and with that, distance grows, not just physically, but relationally. Look around today. Thousands of languages, countless cultures, different nations, all tracing back to this moment. This event didn't just change a city, it reshaped the entire world. It's a question many ask. Was this punishment, or was it protection? Because if humanity had remained united in rebellion, what would have come next? God placed a limit, not to destroy humanity, but to prevent total corruption. By dividing language, He slowed down unified rebellion. He introduced boundaries. This wasn't the end of humanity's story. It was a reset, a redirection, a moment that forced people to spread out, to grow, to depend once again on God's design. And then the place receives a name that would carry meaning for generations. That is why it was called Babel, because there the Lord confused the language of the whole world. Genesis 11. The name Babel is connected to confusion, a place where clarity was lost, where understanding broke down. A moment frozen in history through a name. The people are scattered, the languages are divided, the tower stands unfinished. But the story doesn't end here, because from this divided world, God is about to begin something new. Following this, we uncover the deeper meaning of Babel, and how this moment connects to a much bigger plan. A plan that reaches far beyond confusion and points toward restoration. Stay with us. This is Bible News Network. Welcome back to Bible News Network. A tower left unfinished, a people divided, a world forever changed. What happened at Babel was more than a moment. It was a message about power, about pride, and about the limits of human ambition. But it was also something else, something deeper. Because even in division, there was a plan unfolding. The dust has settled, the voices have separated, the people have moved on. But Babel remains, not as a thriving city, but as a memory, a reminder carved into history, that humanity united without God will always lose its way. Unity is powerful, but direction matters. At Babel, the people had unity, but no obedience. Vision, but no alignment. They worked together, but not with God. And that made all the difference. Babel exposes something deep within the human heart. The desire to rise, to be seen, to be remembered. Let us make a name for ourselves. That wasn't just their statement. It's a temptation that echoes through every generation, to build identity without God. But Babel doesn't just reveal humanity. It reveals God. A God who sees, a God who responds, a God who intervenes, not to destroy, but to redirect. So the Lord scattered them. Genesis 11. God's action wasn't random. It was intentional. He didn't wipe humanity out. He guided it back to his original plan. From that moment on, the world would never be the same. Languages multiplied, cultures developed, nations emerged. What began in one place spread across the entire earth, and history, as we know it, began to unfold. But here's where the story gets even more interesting. Because right after Babel, in the very next chapter, something unexpected happens. God doesn't abandon humanity. He chooses one man. Out of the scattered world, God calls a man named Abraham. A man who would leave his land, his people, his language group, and follow God into the unknown. I will make you into a great nation, and all peoples on earth will be blessed through you. Genesis 12. At Babel, humanity tried to make a name for themselves. With Abraham, God promises to make his name great. One was built on pride, the other on obedience. Babel scattered people, but God's plan was never to leave them scattered forever. From one man would come a nation, from that nation a promise, and from that promise a path that would reach all nations again. And centuries later, something remarkable would happen. A moment where language, once divided, would suddenly unite again. Not at a tower, but in a different place. Not by human effort, but by divine power. At an event known as Pentecost, people from different nations, speaking different languages, heard one message and understood it. Not confusion, but clarity. Not division, but connection. Babel was division, but it wasn't the end of the story. It was a chapter, a moment that revealed the problem so that one day God could reveal the solution. So what do we learn from Babel? That human effort alone can never reach heaven. That unity without God leads to confusion. That pride always comes at a cost. If Babel happened today, what would it look like? A world building higher, faster, stronger, but forgetting the one who gave it breath? The story of Babel isn't just ancient history. It's a mirror, a reflection of what happens when humanity moves forward without looking up. The tower stood tall, but it didn't last. The people were united, but it didn't hold. The language was one, but it didn't remain. Because true unity doesn't come from building upward. It comes from aligning upward. The Tower of Babel, a project that aimed for the heavens, but ended in confusion. A story of ambition interrupted, and a reminder that when humanity tries to take God's place, everything falls apart. But when God leads, even division can become part of a greater plan. This has been Bible News Network. Stay informed, stay inspired, and keep seeking truth.